All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome everybody to this side event organized by the government of Georgia, the Foundation for Climate Protection and Carbon Offset KliK Foundation, and the University of Applied Science of Zurich, with the support of Perspectives Climate Research. I want to extend a warm welcome to the audience and our distinguished set of panelists. Happy to see you here and looking forward to a very engaging and interactive session. My name is Ximena Samaniego. I'm part of the Perspectives Climate Research Group. I'm working on carbon market mechanisms and I'll be moderating this event. To start, I would like to contextualize this event briefly. So, as you may know, one of the core principles of Article 6 of Paris Agreement is to increase the mitigation ambition. The Article 6 rules adopted at COP26 in Glasgow allow the transition of CDM projects and credits after 2012 to be used towards achieving the first updated NDC. However, there are considerable gaps in defining what could be transferred and how to do it in a way that will be aligned with the national priorities and goals to the extent of contributing to increase the ambition of the host countries' NDCs. Therefore, with this side event, we want to discuss how Syrian transition can increase the ambition of host countries' NDCs, for example, by introducing restrictive crediting periods or approving only a part of the CRs for transition, among other options. Um, since some countries have been achieving progress in defining and setting up their national frameworks for resilient transition, we will also wanted to include these strategies that are embedded within their overall Article 6 strategy at national level. So with this event, we aim to present an overview of how this practice, how these transition activities could encourage parties to increase ambition over time, and how parties start implementing their Article 6 strategy onwards. So regarding the agenda, we will have a series of presentations by our selected panelists. They will present 3 different experiences on how to build city and transition frameworks and the key considerations to increase ambition of the host countries NDC through Article 6. Then we will have a panel discussion to further explore the city and transition processes that the presenting countries will employ and the manner in which these contribute to their Article 6 strategies. So last but not least, we will have a Q&A session that we will take place at the end. And yeah, that will be the agenda for today. So without further comments, I would like to welcome our first panelist, Ms. Maia, from the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Agriculture of Georgia. So Maia, thank you very much for being here. I pass it over to you.
Good afternoon, colleagues. I hope you can hear me. Thank you for this event, and thank you for not pronouncing my surname, because in English it's really complicated. You can't hear. Ah, okay, like that. Is it okay? Okay, like that. I'll try. Great. I'll be presenting about the Georgia's experience on the carbon markets, which is not very extensive. However, we are moving on that forward, especially in terms of the Article 6 operationalization, which is one of our priorities, and we really want to become a proactive member of the Article 6, while the 6.4 isn't operational yet. Before I go to the Article 6 the framework and the in-country processes, let me just briefly mention about our NDC targets and how we are going to work through the NDC on the carbon market. So we unconditionally committed to reduce our emissions by 35% from the compared to 1999 level, and also conditionally we commit to reduce the emissions by 57% in case of international support, technological transfer, and so on. Additionally, we have in terms of the allocation, we have the commitment. We don't have the number of commitment. However, we said that we will study the adequate capacity and implement the measures for the adaptation. We have quite an important part of the climate change and the gender in our NDC, and we also look on that direction. The base year is 1990. So in order not to be the climate, not to NDC, not to be on like general document, we also developed the climate change strategy and action plan, which is for 2030. Strategy and action plan is like 3 years, subject to update. It includes the mitigation targets in 7 economic sectors. It is the energy generation and transmission, transport, industry, forestry, buildings, agriculture, and the waste sectors. So in each sector, also our NDC sets the target, how much should we reduce by 2030. Also, we currently developed the long-term low emission development strategy, which is going to adopt it quite soon, and we target with the LTLX to reach the carbon neutrality by 2050. We understand that it will be very ambitious only for Georgia, so we also target to say that we would require substantial international support in that. When it comes to the coordination, the climate policy, including the ones on the carbon markets, we have created the Climate Change Council of Georgia, which is mandated to coordinate the implementation of the Paris Agreement and the UNFCCC. And additionally, the council is the high-level council with the ministers from all line ministries, and it has the working groups, which are the like technical level. Currently, there is the new working group that has been created for the Article 6 on the carbon market. So this working group, together with the partners, will be responsible to operationalize the Article 6, to develop the framework, like the policies, authorize the projects, and so on. On the Article 6 itself, while it is not fully operational still, we decided to go a big step further, and we signed the bilateral agreements with the different countries. One of them is Switzerland, and with the KliK Foundation, we are working on the different type of projects. So we signed the agreement with the KliK Foundation in 2021. Should I use both? Is it okay now? No. I mean, I'm speaking both. Hopefully that you will hear it just from one of them. Okay. So with the Switzerland, we signed the bilateral agreement in 2021, and the idea is also that within the agreement, we'll create a joint intergovernmental committee, which will validate the projects, authorize, and so on. So it will be like joint government-to-government cooperation. Of course, we see that it will be in the private sector mostly leading the implementing the process, but we will have the oversight and supervision role in that process. Other than Switzerland, just recently, before coming at the COP, we have signed another bilateral agreement with Japanese government under the framework of the joint operating mechanism. It has been signed in September 2022. It has also kind of the similar modalities of the cooperation with the joint committee for the project authorization, validation, and so on. The difference between the Japanese and the Switzerland is that Switzerland is a result-based payment, so you implement the measures and you get paid, and with the JCM it's upfront payment. Therefore, we try to have these like different options to offer to our national Georgian private sector or the public sector authorities, with which modality depending is more interesting or acceptable for them. Additionally, not to kind of freeze on the bilateral agreements and really to work on that direction, we have developed the carbon market readiness needs assessment, CAPS and the needs assessment actually. So we have identified the main gaps in the carbon market. Of course, the way they were like non-existing coordination framework, the lack of capacity, the lack of governance, the project development, and so on. And based on the gaps identified, we also started to fill those gaps in order to really address those issues in a systemic way and to be ready for already project implementation. Additionally, because everyone is worried about the underselling or overselling of the CERs, therefore we did carbon market potential assessment. So it was a carbon market scoping study with the ERD. And there we identified the main, like within the sectors of the NDC, we have identified the lower hanging fruits and the high hanging fruits because we saw that we really want to tackle with the carbon markets the sectors which are challenging for us, which needs more like technological and financial resources. This will help us to go beyond the NDC because everyone is kind of thinking how you make sure that you have the NDC and then you need to go beyond. So in that like sectorial assessment, we already more or less know which sectors we will kind of target. Additionally, based on the results of the sectors, we think to have the positive and negative lists of the project of the sectors and of the measures, which will make for us and also for the project developers easy which directions they could see. Okay. Okay. And that's it. So the market study is also in place, which gives us a lot of good information to strategically plan where do we go next. As on the, sorry, I think this is not the last version, but anyway, okay, maybe I missed. Thank you. So there was some issue with the different versions of the presentation. It's my fault, sorry. So on the KliK Foundation as well. So with the Switzerland mainly we worked through the KliK Foundation to initiate the project and to go through to implement the actual projects within government, within the bilateral of the government of Switzerland and Georgia. With the KliK Foundation, we have currently identified several projects, potential projects. Some of them are more like mature, some of them are only project ideas, and etc. For example, one of the projects is the energy efficiency in the building sector, like the program of energy efficiency in the building sector, which are actually quite hard to implement within the Georgia because the sector is really not a low-hanging fruit. It has a lot of challenge in terms of the refurbishment of the buildings and so on. So this was one of the first projects that we have identified together. Additionally, we currently are working together with the UNDP and through the KliK Foundation as well on the sectors like the waste management and so on. So we are kind of developing our kind of pilots and developing our pipeline in that direction. Additionally, we just recently also had a kickoff conference of the carbon markets in Georgia. Carbon market in Georgia, where we saw that there was a huge interest from the private sector, from the public sector, because it's really new for everyone. So we saw that we are on the right track and we are really dedicated to operationalize the Article 6 implementation. I think this is not the slides for this meeting, and thank you very much.
Well, okay, it's now working. Okay, well, thank you, Maia, for your insightful presentation about Georgia framework on the carbon markets and the strategies that you are currently putting in place to operationalize under these existing capacities. Now, I am glad to present our second speaker, which is Mr. Sang-Sung Ha. He is the head of the carbon desk of EcoEye for almost 13 years and with huge experience in CDM projects and major offset provider for Korean ETS. So, Samson, I hand over to you.
Can you hear me in the backside? Okay. Good. So I would like to explain about Article 6 and especially for the CDM transition for Korean carbon market. Korea is a very unique position regarding CDM transition. As you may know, Korean government was non-annex one country under Kyoto Protocol until 2020. But Korea started its carbon market since 2015, and it allowed Korean entities. If Korean entities invested in overseas CDM project, then those CERs can be eligible for Korean carbon market. That was started from 2018. It was 2 years after Paris Agreement enforcement. So, yeah, think about that. Non-annex one country under Kyoto Protocol, it invested in overseas CDM project when the CDM going to be end in 2018, 19, 20. We invested. At that time, Korean entities, if there was a Paris Agreement Article 6.4, there is no reason to invest in CDM. If 6.4 is available, then definitely Korean entity invested in the 6.4 mechanism. But because of developed country and developing country argued each other and delayed, last year we got just the rule book, but this year COP 2070, no progress until now. I'm very disappointed about that. So we had around 100 domestic CDM projects, but those projects registered mostly before 2012. So most projects creating period ended or will be ended soon. But now Korean project participants like EcoEye is very keen interest in the CDM transition, not for the Korean domestic registered project, but for the CDM project we invested in 2018, 19, 20 for the transition to use for Paris NDC. So as I wrote down in my first slide, overseas CDM project invested by Korean entity for Korean ETS since 2018. The mostly Korean private sector invested in 2019 and 20 when CDM just going to be end. So that is, we are saying it's on early action for Paris Agreement and this compliance. So we invested in 2019 and 20 in mostly least developed country community-based project, because at that time we was thinking least developed country outside of the NDC or conditional NDC, that project type is mostly safe for the transition. But you guess the community-based stove project like stove project, without continuous carbon revenue, the project cannot be sustained. So we are very waiting for the CDM transition clear rule as soon as possible. So that is some key messaging. And I would like to explain the Korea NDC and the Article 6 consideration for the NDC complementary measure. The Korea NDC, as you see now, our target emission by 2030 is 436 million tons CO2. The recent GHG emission reported by Korean Research Center GRI is around 670 million in 2021. So from 2021 up to 2030, now Korean industry needed to mitigate the emission annually more than 5%. So it is quite difficult for Korean economy. So government considers Article 6 when they increase its ambition. So Article 6 is very important for Korean government to comply with this ambitious and this target. So now we have two demand for Article 6 credit. First is Korean ETS private sector. KETS covers more than 70% of Korean nationwide emission, and around 680 compliance entities can use overseas credit up to 5% of their emission. So that is around 3 million at the 330 million at the moment. And when compliance entity emission reduced, we are expecting around 20 million ton CO2 demand at the point of 2030. And the other is the Korean government demand. Korean government also announced it will procure or it will invest in Article 6.2 project for government demand. The demand at the point of 2030 is 33.5 million, and that is the only single year the demand. So Korean government will start its pilot from next year. So maybe million scale from next year up to 33.5 million at the point of 2030. So we are expecting averagely from 2023 up to 2030, average 1 year demand for Article 6 for Korean government and Korean ETS is of more than 50 million. That is huge. I think it is the largest demand except JCM. So that Article 6 is really important for Korean market. So this is KETS price development. Korea Allowance Unit is the representative of Korean credit and allowance. It started from around $8 in January of 2015, and it picked up to $35 at the point of March of 2020. Because of economic recession, now price is fluctuating. But KA total trade volume since 2015 up to now is around 70 million, and weighted average price is around more than $15. So this is KETS international offset credit rule. KETS does not allow the CRs from CDM project to invest. CDM project was 6.4 project invested by foreign entity. So Korean government only allow the CRs from CDM project invested by or owned by Korean entity at the beginning of the project registration date. So from 2015 up to 2017, which was phase 1 of Korean ETS, only domestic CDM project CR can be converted to Korean offset credit and can be surrendered for its compliance. And since 2018 up to 2020, it was phase 2 of Korean ETS. And from this time, the CDM, overseas CDM project invested by Korean entity, those CR can be converted to Korean offset credit. Just 3 years. So at the moment, the CDM just stopped and the new mechanism way too long. So the CDM transition to sustain the project invested in 2018 and 20 is very, very urgent and critical for Korean ETS and Korean NDC compliance. This is the more in detail eligibility criteria. We have 4 types of category. So first one, anyhow, most of the 4 cases, the Korean entity have to prove Korean ownership of the project from the beginning of the registration. And if Korean government ownership of the project is 30%, then only 30% of the CERs can be converted to Korean offset credit. It's very, very, so now the supply is very limited because only Korean entity invested project CR is eligible, or Korean entity invested in 6.4 mechanism, 6.4 credit can be eligible for Korean market. And we have to register the existing UN registered project. We have to re-register in Korean offset registry. It takes more than 6 months. And we also need to get re-verification by the Korean regulator to convert this CER or 6.4 year to Korean offset credit. So the process is very, very complicated and very robust and very conservative. So as I mentioned, Equai and several other Korean companies have invested in millions of improved cooking stove in Africa and Asia countries, in least developed countries. So those projects are in danger now because of the CDM transition will take more than 2 or 3 years without cash flow for this project, and we cannot provide the operation some support to the project side. So this is the scenario we are guessing, when it can be transitioned and then when the KOC from post-2020 credit can be issued. Considering the recent negotiation, we are expecting post-2020 ER-related KOC may be issued after 2026. So the host country early approval and UN negotiation for the transition modality and all the details, that is very critical for Korean invested overseas CDM project. Thank you very much.
All right. Then, thank you so much, Samson, for clearly showing us the Korean offset program, how the Korean offset program is envisioning the transition pathways for CDM activities, and also for showing us the challenges and the complexity that these mechanisms, already existing mechanisms, need to face in order to fit in these new criteria and conditions under the Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. Then, moving forward with the agenda, I will introduce our third panelist, which is Ms. Hanh. She is the Managing Director of the National Energy Efficiency Program. She has a long-standing expertise in designing carbon markets, climate finance, and ESG mitigation initiatives. So, Ms. Hanh, thanks for being here. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Ximena, and ladies and gentlemen. So my pleasure to be here to introduce you about the background and then the concern for the CDM transition in Vietnam. My name is Hanh. I'm the co-founder and managing director of VNEEC. We have been active in the CDM and carbon market since September 2006, and this is why we may give you the view from the really implementation point of view. Okay. So this is just an overview about the CDM status in Vietnam at the moment. The latest statistic data, we have more than 273 projects registered, and with that we have among that we have 16 POIs project activity, and the rest are the CDM project activity. And the thing that I would like to focus here is on the you see the share the registered project come from hydropower sector is account for 74%. So in total for renewable energy project registered here is almost 80%. And then we have 22 projects registered after 2012. But this is in terms of the registered project that we rank first in the world. But if we talk about the CR issues, then the number is less impressive, because in that we have only about 29% of project register has been issued the CR so far, and we rank the S in the world for the internal number of the CR issued. So I want to have a focus on the CDM registered project that are renewable energy because of according to the law in Vietnam, on the renewable energy or on power generation project, they have to be included in the National Power Development Master Plan. So we call it soft PDP. So in the recently, the latest PDP we have, this is the revised PDP 7. That the PDP 8, maybe some of you know, is under approval of the Prime Minister. So it's coming very soon in this month, next month that we hope. So it means that the PDP, the revised PDP 7, that is that is valid now, is approved by the Prime Minister in 2016. So it means that the power, and then the revised NDC of Vietnam is the latest one is just uploaded in 2022 in this year. So and then so it means that the power sector BAU scenario include on the data and then the plan activity of the power generation activity in that NDC. So I want to focus to work on the assumption in the Thai. We just look at the two biggest registered CDM hydropower projects in Vietnam that have a starting date in the first crediting period in November 2012. So just assume, I haven't looked in detail yet, but just assume that they are eligible, they has done the renewable the renewal activity, and then they are eligible for the next phase of the second crediting period. Then they have the annual CR estimated in total about 1 million CR per year. And then, as I mentioned before, they have to be included in the BAR scenario for the revised NDC in 2020 and 2022, the latest one, because they have to be included in the revised PDP 7. That's very clearly. So just if my assumption that if they are eligible to transfer and register under Article 6.4, what would happen to the NDC tax to the country? So you can imagine that estimated credit issue from the 1st of January 2021 until the end of the second crediting period. That means that for 5 years under the Article 6.4, I roughly estimate is about 5.9 million credits. And then if that 5.9 million credit will be transferred to the buyer countries, and then Vietnam had to do the corresponding adjustment. So it means that they have to deduct from the emission taxes. Recently, the emission taxes for energy sector in the NDC by 2030 is 52 million. So they have to deduct from that. So it's clearly that the country might miss the commitment taxes because of this transaction. So it's very important question for approval CDM project applying for transition under Article 6.2, 6.4 for the country in Vietnam. Like, is the activity already included in the BAU scenario for the NDC? So that is not yet answered because we have no study in the country like CDM, like similar like Georgia, they have done the CDM potential assessment, but in Vietnam there are no research like that. We hope that is coming soon because we also have some donors that are also interested in finance for the government to conduct a study on the CDM transition. So I hope that in that they will look at different aspects, including this very critical question for the BAU scenario included in the for the transition, CDM transition activity or not. So for the next step of the host country, from my point of view, there are the two specific questions I would like to discuss here because they are it has to come from the government, but I still would like to try it and maybe to share my insights so we can discuss. Like for the first one, like should the country apply the first come first served approach or should be the fast track for the specific activity? So in Vietnam, the government usually they are very cautious of the new thing. So I don't think that they will decide anything in this stage, but then they will wait for the study and recommendation to decide which form of the approval process or procedures that they will apply for the CDM transition. So I think, but in my point of view, the government they will apply the hybrid approval process. It means that they will set certain criteria for the CDM transition activities, and then they will apply the first come first serve in the approval process. And then the second question for the private sector, so far in Vietnam, private sector has been the main player for the CDM implementation. And so how we can re-engage them and motivate them to in the CDM transition. I think whether they have a strong interest or what we are going to deal with the large scale zombie CDM project. If you look at the table here, you see that according to the recent rules, that is still under negotiation, but you see that the crediting period expired before the 1st of 2021, and then the renewal no longer possible because for some reason, like for the VNEEC, we also have a number of projects that are not going to be renewal because there's no interest from the buyer, for example, or we see that this is risky for the next phase, so we are not going to renew it. But then, of course, if we don't renew it, and then we are not eligible to continue under the transition in the current discussion. So we see that we have 258 project activities, but more than half of that they are not eligible to transfer. So what we are going to do with that? Whether the government is interested in promoting it in the domestic market or not, or what the viewpoint of the government here is not clear. So I hope that it will be also discussed with the government and can answer somehow in the near future, because otherwise we have quite limited number of projects will be considered for the transaction. So maybe the demand is too small for the government to take the action here. For the in general, for the next step of the host country like Vietnam to approve of CDM transition activity. So I think for the three activity, like aspect that the government had to be endorsed. The first one is the confirmation on fostering sustainable development. So far, Vietnam has no criteria, specific criteria for the CDM for the contribution to sustainable development of the CDM project activity at all. So should the country will develop the new criteria and new set of criteria on some procedure. So in the previous side event perspective, I saw that the team IoT developed the tool, the sustainable development tools. So I think that it will be helpful for the country like Vietnam. We can apply and learn from that and maybe adopt it to the countries. So I also recommend the government also to follow and look at that tool in detail and see how they can be applied to Vietnam. And then the second aspect the government had to be considered is the approval of potential renewal crediting periods. So yeah, as I mentioned previously, so we have to consider different aspects, like whether the project is the renewal is before the NABC was submitted or before the updated NABC was submitted. And when is the crediting period of project is really start, because when they register, this is just let's say the assumption that they for the start date, but actual start they may revise it during the implementation. So any deviation from the registration. So for that, to answer such a question, you need to really study in detail, look at the pipeline very detail, and on the statistics of the data, the CDM project activities in the pipeline of the countries. And in the relation to the implementation of the NABC, this is the most important thing that I highlighted before. So the question is the sector covered by the NABC, otherwise it can lead to the overselling risk. And then which type of project are included in the baseline for the sector, like for the renewable energy and hydropower project that I mentioned. So they are in the energy sector. So energy sector also allocated the emission reduction checklist. So we have to look into detail of the revise the NABC on the BAU scenario, and also look in detail of the NSC, and we are the head on the like the assumption for the calculation of the mitigation activities. So I think for that we also have need a lot of effort, and then index study to answer such question. So this is my key point I want to discuss and highlight the video. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dan, for addressing one of the crunch issues that I think is crucial for talk about transitioning requirements, which is the inclusion of the CDM activities in the NGC and how it's going to be done onwards. I think, as you mentioned, it is actually a political, very difficult question that the countries are now facing, and I think it's very helpful to raise here these kind of concerns and show how at national level everything is being done, and also help other countries to answer the same questions. So now I would like to present our four panelists, which is Mr. Flossmann-Kraus from the Foundation for Climate Protection and Carbon Offset KliK Foundation. So very quickly, Misha, you have the floor.
Okay, so thank you very much for having the floor on this very topical topic. Yeah, of course I do not have a crystal ball. What will happen with the CDM transition and the negotiations, but we still have a very clear basis to answer a few of the questions. How the KliK Foundation will go about buying transitions or buying 6.4 CRs or ERs, and how we in this process see the role of ambition being kept important. For this I have to explain a little bit about the framework because this defines also the position of the KliK Foundation with respect to 6.4. It is important to understand that the KliK Foundation is governed by the Swiss national legislation. It is obliged to, by law, to procure the ITMOs, and the law basically provides for a row of elements and specifications that can be translated in answering the question what kind of transition CRs, for example, can be used for the eligibility under the law. And so basically two very important elements can be said, that is, no all CRs can be used, so emission reductions have to be generated prior to 21, and also we cannot use old project in a sense. The Swiss government allows only for fresh projects that have been implemented after registration, after registration. So no implementation before registration. And there also are some technology restrictions. So we are looking forward to 6.4, but with limitations. irrespective, the mechanism will remain very relevant for the foundation in its procurement strategy, although we continue base our activities on 6.2 as we did in the past and will do going forward. 6.4 will be very instrumental in providing for the residual of the obligation target. We would still work in a very much primary market mode, so working with primary project developer to make projects fly. So we will have a very close relation to the project, and we will also engage in early action. New activities, fresh activities need lead time to develop, and we have to be shovel ready when the mechanism is there. That also means we will explore and pilot and will identify suited mitigation action based on our 6.2 experience mainly. What we learned from 6.2 is that countries remain or are pushed to the driver's seat. We heard it in the previous presentations. Ambition is not something to be generated, but ambition is to a certain extent built in the mechanism or in the system, because countries are very much aware that if they sell low-hanging fruits, this will impact their ability to reach the targets. And this is a very important learning that we had. This is also even increased by the fact that the Swiss national legislation is very strict on this, and we would not be able to go forward buying 6.4 ERs that stem from low-hanging fruits, even if the host country would authorize it. So it is a bilateral relation in the end, still also under 6.4, and this also means that we have to work very closely with project developer and host country governments to identify the approaches and also methodologies that are suited for to meet both requirements. And that way, working closely together, ambition can be and will be built into the transaction. And yeah, as I explained, the transaction will be primary, and it is important to understand that the host country need to come forward with a clear view on what constitutes an activity, also in transitioning activities that will not infringe their positions in the NDC. And to this end, countries need to establish a national framework and a policy that is endorsed by politics and gives a stable ground to go forward in doing proper regulation. So, to conclude, looking into the future, we are quite confident that that the mechanism can be piloted as well even now, and this piloting or this early work will definitely lead to standardization or a streamlining of those landing zones where countries feel comfortable that projects and also authorized units represent the higher hanging fruits and will not impact on the ability to reach the NDC. Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you so much, Misha, for your presentation and for showing us how the KliK Foundation can contribute to ambition increase and smooth CDM transition. Thanks a lot for the insightful key issues that you highlighted regarding how to do it. Then our final presenter is Ms. Raphaela Kotsch from the Zurich University of Applied Science. She will present the key considerations for increasing ambition of Article 6. And so, Raphaela, let's see you here. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ximena. So my name is Raphaela Kotsch. I'm from the University of Zurich and the Zurich University of Applied Sciences. And I'm going to talk about the CDM transition and key considerations for ambition increase for Article 6. So there are like 4 main guiding questions regarding the CDM transition. So the first one is regarding the methodologies. We don't know yet how the CDM baselines and monitoring methodologies will be used and how they can be used. The second question is which activities, so which CDM projects and programs of activities can be transitioned. The third question is how many CERs, certified emission reduction, will be available for transition. And the fourth question is what are the lessons learned from the CDM regarding the infrastructure requirements, so databases, registries, and platforms. And today I'm going to focus on the last three questions. So we already heard from some specific countries how many projects there are and registered. As we already heard, the cutoff that has been decided last year is the 1st of January 2013 till the end of 2025 for the registration. We know that forestry projects cannot be transferred, and this leads to in total 690 registered CDM projects and another 551 projects that are currently at validation that could be transitioned, so to use the UNEP jargon, Article 6 ready, and the same in Ximena we have like 142 registered POAs and 136 POAs that are currently at validation that could continue, so that they are out there and that are under discussion. And so far, both CDM projects and POAs have issued 57 million CRs so far. If you compare this to the current projects under Article 6, we are currently having, according to the UNEP Article 6 pipeline, 68 pilot projects. Looking at these Article 6 ready CDM projects, you can see on the left-hand side in figures that these are mostly touching upon India, like projects in India, like more than 300 projects, followed by China, Brazil, and most of the projects that are Article 6 ready and that are registered coming from like a wind project, hydro and solar projects. So as you can see, most of them are coming from like renewable energies projects, which are currently also under criticism since it's questionable if they are really like additional or if they are like profitable even without the carbon market. So this is interesting to see that most of the projects are actually coming from this sector. On the right hand side you can see the figure on how many CRs are expected to be issued. So this is in megatons of CO2 equivalents, and you can see also India is expected to issue most of the CRs until the end of 2025. Looking at the total, so we like from all the CDM projects that are registered, it's expected that about 730 million CRs can be issued, and from the project under validation, more than 1 billion. Sorry, moving forward without. Yeah, so more than 1 billion CRs under validation, and for POAs there are like 462 million CRs under registration, and under validation 36 million CRs. So in total we have like a potential supply of up to 2.34 billion CRs. And to just put this in context, there are estimates that the annual global demand for carbon credits is estimated to be about 340 to 510 megaton of CO2 per year by 2030. So this total supply of CRs could potentially cover 4.5 to 7 years of the demand of the voluntary carbon market. Just to put these numbers into context. So, what does it mean for ambition increase under Article 6? So, as we all know, Kyoto and the Paris Agreement both are guided by very different principles. So now we have a long-term temperature goal of the Paris Agreement, and we all know that it's a different world. All countries now are contributing to reducing emissions. We don't have the separate word anymore, and this means that there are different challenges and potentially also perverse incentives for host and buyer countries that can hinder ambition increase. And also further taking into account that the current level of NECs is not enough for reaching the 2-degree goal, at least, and there's also potentially a lot of hot air since NECs are close to business as usual, even higher than business as usual. We have to take into account what it means to take over all certificates and all projects from the CDM. Coming now to the fourth question of what have we learned from the CDM regarding the infrastructure. You can see on the left-hand side an overview of different markets that exist and the different levels. And as you can see, the market, we have an international market, we have regional markets, and they are interlinked through the trade of international certificates, such as this certificates from the CDM. And as you can see as well, that there are different participants on the market, different actors with different interests. And we did a study last year to find the remaining unused CRs. We're digging into all these different levels of the market to find the CRs that are left. And it was a bit of a detective work, it turned out. And we had to see that the CDM market was actually quite fragmented, very inconsistent in reporting. So we could find a lot of information, but only on the aggregate level. And only very few countries and governments publish disaggregated level data, and if they publish, it's not harmonized in the way they report it. So the data exists for different points in time, for different degree of detail, and it was very hard and almost impossible to bring this all together. And there was a remaining residual, so we had to make some estimates. So what are our recommendations for the new infrastructure under Article 6? It's definitely, there should be rules for reporting, there should be information on the accounts, and unique identifiers for each certificate and for each trade. So you can actually follow and understand the ownership of the certificates, which is important not only for avoiding fraud and misuse of the market, but also to create trust in the market for both supplier and demander of certificates. And of course, to safeguard environmental integrity. So like, yeah, if you're interested in more information on the challenges in the carbon market and potential solutions, I recommend you to read our book that was recently published and that you can read for free and even download for free with the following QR code. On that, I would like to thank you.
Alright, so thank you, Raphaela, for your presentation and for enlightening us the critical considerations for ambition increasing and how the learning by doing approaches become some very critical strategies in this topic. Now, I would like to start a conversation with our three panelists that presented us some national experiences. I would like to ask some specific questions, given the detailed information received about how your countries are now setting these transition frameworks. So, therefore, I would like to start with you, Hanh. So we clearly saw in your presentation how Korea intends to use Article 6.4 as one of the preferred options towards achieving the NDC. So it would be interesting also to know how or if Korea has included existing CDM activities to contribute to the unconditional target of your NDC. Your updated NDC, and if yes, was the country expecting that this transition doesn't happen, doesn't take place at some point?
So as I mentioned in my previous presentation, there are two types of CDM related with the Korean NDC. First one is domestically registered CDM project. There are around 100 Korean domestically registered CDM projects, but most CDM projects registered before 2012. So in our research, less than 5 CDM projects, maybe project can be transitioned, having certain meaningful creating period after 2021. So those 5 CDM Korean registered projects now all are eligible for the Korean market. So this is not confirmed by the government, but I am expecting Korean government may allow to switch this Korean registered CDM project to Korean domestic offset project. And continuously CDM project owner cannot issue the ZHAW for post 2020, but can issue directly the Korean offset credit from the domestic mechanism. That is what we are expecting and that we are discussing with the Korean government. And the other type is the CDM project invested by Korean entity in almost overseas CDM project. Korean government, actually there are some Korean private sectors are trying to convince Korean government to use the balance credit such as Beta or gold standard for post 2020 because Article 6.4 transition takes a long time. So private sector tried to convince the Korean government to allow a better credit or gold standard credit if it can be correspondingly adjusted. But at the moment, Korean government did not give any clear answer, and in my understanding, Korean government does not agree to use the balance mechanism. So those CDM projects invested by Korean entity located in overseas, the transition of the CDM is very important because of this kind of Article 6 opportunity makes Korean government a little bit more comfortable to increase its ambition further. So this CDM transition and Article 6 fully operationalization as soon as possible is very critical for increasing ambition of the Korean embassy.
working? Okay. Well, thanks, Ximena. Indeed, I think this is one of the critical questions that most of the countries have in terms of how the existing capacities and the existing mechanisms that are at national level will transition and how governments could face also to adjust the existing capacities to the new frameworks. And in that sense, I would like also to move forward to asking to Ms. Dan. So, based on the next steps that you have presented in Vietnam for the approval of CDM transition, and considering that we are also highlighting here how the existing capacities could also influence this process, I would ask you which ways to increase ambition would you prioritize based on the next steps that you highlighted previously?
Yeah, thank you very much, Ximena, for the question. I think it's not easy at all, the question, because in my presentation you see that it's very easy, like it's counterproductive when you use the credentialism. If you don't have the really the good strategy and also carefully examine the pipeline, the country, it can be like not increase ambition of the country, but can really like contribute negatively to meet the energy sector commitment of the country. So I think first of all, for the government in the list of activity, I think to keep the ball needs to be the government to facilitate and also to see that the priority of the country for the really the type of activity and project that can be eligible to transfer. And if it's eligible, then under which condition, and then also other specific, let's say the timeline and things for the activity to be transferred that can really contribute to increase the ambition of the country. Otherwise, yeah, if they open it like for any type of project activity like in the past, they wanted to see them, I think it cannot be the case because it really like now they have the emergency commitment, so this is the kind of the most critical issue they have to look first for the type of project that will really contribute and impact on to meet the energy security. So I think the board is in the government and that they should start first. But on the other hand, I also think that the private sector, like usually they don't have a good, let's say, in terms of the project owner, they don't have the good knowledge of the carbon market and also the CDM transition, not at all. So the company in the middle, like the consulting company like the EC, can help to facilitate it and also provide the demand for the energy transition and also to request the government to move forward to really to consider and examine and also issue the regulation and the guidance for the CDM transition in the country in the after the in-depth and careful study. I think yeah, it can be first the government and also the activity from the private sector also important.
All right, yes, thank you. In fact, that would be also something that I wanted to highlight here, the role of private sector in this transitioning framework. So we know that they are key players in CDM and also in carbon marketing strategies, and that's why also I would like to ask Maia, move forward with the panel. So we saw in your presentation that Georgia framework about carbon markets is also considering a lot of important aspects to operationalize your Article 6 strategy participation. So I would like to know, I would be interested to know how the private sector is reacting to that. Do they have a strong interest in carbon markets? How was the situation with the CDM participation at the time that was developed, and how they are envisioning their participation in the Article 6 strategy that you already presented?
Okay, thank you for the question. Indeed, the biggest interest that we have seen is the private sector because we all know that none of the public sector, the only governments can implement really those emission reductions that are needed for this implementation. Therefore, we also from our side target the private sector because we see that there is a potential, there is an interest, but there is a need also for the finance because usually the emission reduction technologies are not quite expensive, and when the private sector is not maturing enough, they need support. Also, what we have seen already that the private sector representatives, they have approached us before we started in the process, so there is this need and there is this interest. The same was with the CDM, it was quite many years ago, but the projects that have been really issued the CRs, the reductions were from the private sector. So in the CDM, we didn't have that much public sector projects at that time. Here we see the majority will be the private sector projects, but also maybe some public sector related projects will come in within the implementation process. However, currently, as far as we are starting the process for developing the pipeline of the projects, we will probably have more clear information on what will be the shares. But definitely, we see it's mostly for the private sector, with our support to move to the emission reduction pathways.
Well, thank you so much, Maya. And yes, just to wrap up a little bit this discussion, so I see that the participation also for private sector is, and also the engagement with all the key role participants under the carbon market mechanism would be also something that at national level is crucial to define how to participate in Article 6 studies and how to draw the pathways of defining CDM transition frameworks, highlighting the linkages that all the involved actors need to also make in order to have some progress in this matter. So, well, it was indeed a great and enlightening conversation. Many thanks to all the panelists for this participation. Now I will invite the audience to ask their questions to the panelists. Please introduce yourself briefly before asking. And I would like to give the floor first to the on-site audience, but I have a question also for virtual participation. So, yeah, please, the floor. If someone back, can you help me with the microphone? It's so many times. So I need one. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Axel Michaelova from University of Zurich and Perspectives Climate Research. My question would relate to the attractiveness of transition CRs for buyers. Who would be willing to buy such units? Would it be mostly host countries themselves who want to use them to reach the NDCs? One could, for example, think of China and India buying their own stuff and accounting it towards its NDCs? Or would you see appetite from, let's say, the traditional buying countries in Europe? You've heard from Misha that Switzerland will not consider buying, and I've not seen any other buyer so far. So how would you see that situation?
So I will invite, I don't know, if someone could ask questions or...
Korea government also has no intention to buy P2021 CERs from project not invested, directly invested by Korean entity. But Korean ETS anyhow allowed the pre-2020 CERs from the CDM project invested by Korean entity, and Korean entity now keeping those pre-2021 CER, which already converted to KOC. So when the 6.4 registry and pre-2021 CER transfer rule become clear, then the Korean regulator asked the Korean private sector transfer this pre-2021 CER to Korean government holding account of 6.4 registry. Then I'm not sure whether Korean government actually used this pre-2021 CERs from project invested by Korean entity to NDC compliance, or just it cancelled those CERs or beyond the NDC. I'm not sure, but anyhow, the clear thing is Korean government also does not have any intention to buy the CERs from CDM projects invested by Korean entities.
Thank you, sir. So we have another question. Two questions more. Okay. So, please remember to introduce yourself.
Hello. Mount of Vivala, observer from with the aircraft Friends of Mayors International. I'm from Georgia. I have question to Raphaela and maybe others to intervene. With the Kyoto mechanism, with the CDM, there were, I've seen it in an impressive list of the hydropower there. And these are the projects with the severe environmental impact, strong environmental impacts. Unfortunately, in the past, the CDM mechanism was issued on the projects which either were damaging themselves or they were damaged by the natural processes related to climate change. So how this transition improved this assurance that the project would have a strong environmental impact?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So as a climate environment, you're asking how the hydro project could be transitioned.
Yeah, I don't know the new mechanism, but with previous mechanism, each project should have been assessed, and this should be summarized in the CDM documentation. And if you look into the documentation, everything is fine. But if you look into the real life, there are serious impacts on the project or from the project. So my question is how we safeguard the environment from severe impacts, and what are the mechanisms for that during the trading with the carbon credits?
Yeah, like the number you're seeing, that's the number of projects and hydro projects that are officially ready to be transitioned. So it's not clear yet if there will be an amendment to the methodologies and if there will be reassessed and how. So this is still not now, because now that these projects could potentially transition, but we will need to see how they will be reassessed.
I will also questions from the Article 6.4 supervisory perspective. So there are the methodologies currently which is being developed for the Article 6.4 operationalization, which of course has a criteria, and one of the key issues is that there should be zero or very limited or mitigated based on the environment. So this is already there. So every project will be going to be based on that risk, of course, so it will be avoided.
Good, perfect. Go on.
Yeah, good afternoon. I am from India. My name is S.A. Verma. I represent a metro rail corporation. I'm sorry we joined a little late. We were in the wrong room. And so by the time we realized where we should be, it was sort of closed. I mean, the panel had already spoken, so we missed quite a bit of what you've actually missed. So I do apologize for that, but my question is this. Do you have a roadmap or a timeline for the transition? That is number one. Number two, as the gentleman asked earlier, we continue to generate CERs from the pre-2020 targets. The methodology, will it be applicable in the new regime, in the Paris regime, or you are planning to have a new methodology, you want to reinvent the wheel again? And what is the view of the secretariat now? Am I clear?
So could you please also refer to whom could be the question, because we don't have any secretary representatives here, but we can also provide some information. So do you have the question for any of our specific panelists, or?
I'm sorry, I do not know who.
Okay, so
anyone who can just enlighten us and guide us and tell us, just fine.
Okay, I will try to respond. That's already So on the transition, first we all understand that 6.4 should be operationalized in order to really, whether it's going to receive the existing project or whether it is a new project. So it's roughly, probably 2024 is something like the countries are expecting it to be operationalized. If the second question was related to the methodology, so that they will be used the CDM one or the new one. Currently, the discussion in the supervisory body, the way we have, is that it will be the new methodology, so it will not be the new CDM. So Article 6.4 should not be the new CDM, but it should be something else. Therefore, the methodologies, of course, will be mostly based on the existing ones, but it will not one by one replicate them, because all the methodologies have something that can be updated.
okay, actually I understand you want to complement.
Well, the supervisory body may define conditions for the transition. So it may that not all projects qualify, but this is still up for negotiations, and as you've seen, it was not possible to take a decision in the supervisory body, so the issue will be deferred for another year. So you need to be patient.
Okay, so we're testing our patience, right?
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much. I would like to have the final question, which is from one of our virtual participants. This question is for all the three panelists, and actually our country presenters. So he's asking, I'm going to read literally. So Article 6.4 Supervisory Body is currently elaborating the requirements related to the methodology, specifically by unpacking the principles from paragraph 33 of the Rules, Modalities and Procedures. So which could be the potential proposals by the panelists to the supervisory body to operationalize some principles such as encouraging ambition over time or alignment with the long-term or low emissions development long-term strategies of the Paris Agreement. So, yeah.
I myself being in the supervisory body, I'm afraid I'm not in a position to suggest anything.
Yeah, I know, but I would like also to invite our other two country participants also, if you have a specific proposal for these two topics. Okay. Okay, it's okay. Well, with then I think I will close this event. Thank you so much for your participation. Thanks for staying here. I know it was a really difficult time. It was lunch time, so thank you very much for your attendance. And yeah, enjoy your last day in a COP. So yeah, have a good night.
Thank you.